You're standing in the paint aisle at Bunnings, not because you needed to be there. You have a property manager for most of that now, but because the tenant at your Campbelltown storage facility texted a photo of a wall with some moisture damage, and you were already driving past, so you pulled in. You're holding a tin of Dulux Moisture Shield in one hand and your phone in the other, trying to remember whether the affected wall is rendered brick or plasterboard, because it matters. That's when the notification arrives. It's from your accountant, David. Subject line, Q2 net position summary. You almost pocket the phone. These arrive every quarter. They're always thorough and formatted in the same Arial 11-point David has used for 15 years. You usually read them over a coffee on Sunday morning, but the number visible in the preview stops you. You put the paint tin down, you open the email, you read the summary line twice, slowly. Total verified net position, including real property equity, business holdings, and investment portfolio, 8.4 million. The fluorescent lights hum above you. Someone 2 meters away is comparing prices on exterior sealant. A staff member in a green apron walks past, pushing a flat trolley of timber. Nobody's looking at you. Nobody knows. This is what $8 million actually looks like. A person standing in a hardware store aisle at 6:47 on a Friday morning, holding a tin of mold-resistant paint. Not a revelation, not a business plan drawn up in a cafe with a MacBook and a vision board. Just a Saturday afternoon about 9 years ago, when you drove past a self-storage facility on the outskirts of Penrith and noticed the no vacancies sign. You'd seen that sign 3 weekends in a row. That was the thing that got you. Not the facility itself, a fairly unremarkable row of corrugated iron sheds behind a chain-link fence, but the sign. The consistent, persistent, boring sign. You went home and spent about an hour on the ATO website and another hour reading through commercial property listings. What you found wasn't glamorous. A small self-storage operation with 40 units in Western Sydney was generating somewhere between $120,000 and $180,000 a year in gross revenue. Occupancy rates for self-storage nationally were sitting above 85%. The industry barely moved during the 2008 financial crisis. It barely moved during COVID. People's stuff has nowhere else to go. The math did something to you, not because the numbers were extraordinary, because they were ordinary and reliable in a way that very few things are. You spent $340,000 on your first facility, 12 units in Campbelltown, basic construction, decent street access. The first year, it netted $31,000 after expenses, rates, insurance, and the interest on the commercial loan you used to fund most of the purchase. Your co-worker made more than that doing overtime. Your sister's boyfriend had just taken a job at a fintech in the CBD with a base salary nearly 3 times that. Nobody was impressed. You weren't looking for impressed. You were looking at what $31,000 proved. It proved the architecture worked. 4 self-storage facilities across Western Sydney and regional New South Wales, combined gross revenue of approximately $620,000 a year. After operating costs, rates, maintenance, and part-time site management, the net is around $210,000. Not a number that gets you on a podcast. Not a number that earns you a standing ovation. But it arrives every month with the consistency of a direct debit, because that's essentially what it is. People's leases auto-renew. The units fill up in winter when people downsize. They fill up in summer when people renovate. They fill up when marriages end, when parents die, when adult kids move back home. The demand doesn't negotiate with interest rate cycles. 3 commercial properties in regional Queensland. 2 are leased to national tenants, a pharmacy and a fast food operator, on long-term leases with fixed annual rent increases built in. The third is a small industrial shed outside Toowoomba leased to a plumbing supplier. Combined, they generate just under $180,000 a year in net rent. The tenants handle their own outgoings. You receive a deposit each month, and that is largely the extent of your involvement. And then there's the superannuation. 15 years of consistent salary sacrifice contributions, topped up each year to the concessional cap, currently $30,000, and invested in a low-cost indexed option through a retail fund. The balance sits at just under $620,000. The ASFA Comfortable Retirement Standard puts the target for a single homeowner at around $595,000. You're already past it, and you're not 50 yet. That account doesn't touch the asset test for the age pension for another 20 years. You're not in a hurry. David, your accountant, once described your portfolio as the most deliberately boring collection of assets he'd seen in 30 years of practice. He meant it as a mild observation. You took it as a compliment because boring is load-bearing. Boring doesn't require a pitch deck. Boring doesn't need a good quarter to survive a bad one. You don't own a new car. The 2018 Toyota Kluger in your driveway has 112,000 kilometers on it and a small dent above the rear wheel arch you haven't bothered to fix. The average new car transaction in Australia is now pushing past $53,000. The average monthly repayment on a financed new vehicle sits around $900. You paid cash for the Kluger 6 years ago. Every dollar not servicing a car loan is compounding somewhere else. You don't own a house that announces itself. 3-bedroom brick veneer in a quiet suburb west of Melbourne. The mortgage was paid off 2 years ago. The neighbours think you're a small business owner who does all right. They're not wrong. They're just missing a few zeros. When you go to the occasional industry event, you're usually in a collared shirt from Uniqlo and shoes that are clean but unremarkable. There's always someone across the room doing it differently. You've seen the type. The designer outfit that costs more than your first storage unit's monthly insurance premium, the financed European SUV parked out front, the LinkedIn posts about scaling and disruption in the grind. They are performing wealth, carefully and at considerable expense, for an audience that changes every few years. You are not performing anything. The ordinary presentation isn't philosophy, it's armor. The moment someone underestimates you, they stop watching you. And the moment they stop watching you, you can do exactly what you want. 3 months ago, your mate Brendan called. You've known him since uni. He called on a Tuesday night, which he doesn't normally do. And underneath the conversation, there was something sitting. He'd been building a small landscaping business for 4 years. Good reputation, repeat clients, a crew of 3 guys he trusted. He needed $95,000 to buy a second truck and some equipment to take on a commercial contract he'd landed with a local council. You could have transferred that money before the call ended. The number $95,000 against your current balance sheet is about 14 days of passive income. It wasn't a financial decision. It was never going to be a financial decision, but you didn't transfer it. You sat with the phone to your ear and listened, and you felt the full weight of knowing exactly what you could do and choosing not to do it yet. Not because you didn't want to help, because money handed to someone before they've stress tested the structure around it doesn't fix the problem. It accelerates whatever's already there. So instead of sending the transfer, you drove to Brendan's place the following Saturday morning. You sat at his kitchen table with a notepad for 3 hours. You went through the council contract terms, the equipment costs, the loan serviceability if the contract wasn't renewed. You found a commercial equipment finance option through Macquarie Bank he hadn't looked at. You found a small business grant through the Victorian government's business development program that he qualified for. 6 weeks later, he had the truck. He called you the night it was delivered. He was proud in the way people are proud when they built something themselves. You didn't tell him what you could have written the check for. You probably never will. That's not secrecy. It's understanding what the story needed to be. 3 words, thanks. Looks right. You pick the paint tin back up, take a photo of the label to send to the property manager, and walk to the checkout. You pay $54.70. You drive back to the storage facility the same way you came. The Kluger needs nothing. The dent above the rear wheel arch is still there. 9 years ago, you netted $31,000 from 12 corrugated iron sheds in Campbelltown and sat with that number on a Sunday morning, not knowing exactly what to call what you were feeling. It wasn't pride and it wasn't disappointment. It was quieter than both. Just the satisfaction of a system running the way you built it to run. This morning feels the same. Exactly the same. Just with more zeros behind it. And that might be the whole point. The number was never the thing. The architecture was. If this kind of video lands for you, subscribe and turn on notifications. There's more where this came from.